welcome. This is Mr. Long and another tip of the week. This week I'm going to be teaching you how to wrap. So the first thing we need to do is beat and then, different wrapping. We're going to be wrapping gifts, boxes, and boxes are actually the easiest thing to wrap. It's technically a rectangular prism. Really any prism could be wrapped this way, cylinders as well. So there are a couple things you need to do before you get started. Get some wrapping paper. I have this wrapping paper which has grid lines on the back, which makes it really nice for cutting nice straight lines so you don't have to guess and end up with a crooked cut. You'll need some tape. I really like this tape dispenser because it clips right onto the table, so you can get the tape one-handed as opposed to one of these, which you have to use two hands. In the middle of wrapping, it's kind of hard to do that. So if you have tape that either sticks to the table or there's weighted tape dispensers that won't move, you can get one-handed or have somebody help you. A couple other things you'll need, some twine or ribbon. I've got some gold ribbon here. There's some ribbon that's real fancy and glittery and it even has wires in it so you can shape it however you want. Peel and stick bows that are already made up works. Make sure you have scissors. All right, so a couple things you'll need to do, which we're going to try to make this efficient because wrapping paper could be expensive. You can also be creative. You don't have to use wrapping paper. You can use newspaper. That's what they used to publish on actual paper. Now it's all on websites. The other thing that you could do is use brown paper. Go to the grocery store and just ask them for brown paper bags. Usually they have those. You just have to typically ask for those. Then you can use them inside out. Be creative with it. I once used house wrap to wrap a gift, and instead of ribbon, I used electrical wire around it. It was from my father-in-law. He's in construction, so it's fitting. Just be creative with what you're using. Instead of ribbon, you could use a scarf to wrap the gift if that's part of the present. But for boxes, you've got 3 dimensions on the box. So you've got 3 different sized rectangles. One might be a square, but they're all rectangles. So you want to find your longest side and go with the other face, and the perimeter of that is actually called the girth of the box. It's a mathematical term that represents the perimeter of the side that's not the length. You're going to roll that on the paper to see how much paper you need. Instead of just guessing and cutting and having extra or having too small of a piece of paper, you can roll it. There are 2 ways to do that. You can roll it along the length of the paper or along the roll of the paper. So there are 4 sides along the girth. So you'll start here right at the edge. I have a piece already cut off of this paper that we had used last time because we cut it that way. But you'll start here and you want 4 sides. You'll count upside down as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'll have to go a little bit more, so I have that little bit left over, and that'll be great for overlap, and that's probably too small to wrap anything else. If I'd have a lot of extra paper, I would only cut maybe an extra inch, especially when the grid lines are there. That'd be one extra box. Cut that extra off, and then the extra paper that you could reuse for smaller boxes. So when you're wrapping several gifts at a time, make sure you wrap the largest ones first, and that way if you have any smaller pieces of paper left over, you can use those to wrap the smaller gifts. Okay, so that's one way to measure it. The other way is, I don't know how much I need this way, so I have to measure that. So you move the box over, and you want this paper to come up, so you want the corner kind of tight. I don't want to crease it too much, but that's how much paper I'm going to need up the side. So what that'll do is cover halfway here and halfway on the other side, and then half on this side too. So it'll cover both sides if you go the whole way up. That'll cover just exactly right. So again, you want to cut an extra inch or so I can see on the paper where that's at. And I'm going to go to the next grid line over. It's really only about half a grid, and if I cut it square and straight, that should be about right. Okay, so I'm going to cut 2 ways to cut. You can cut by snipping, or if they're sharp enough scissors and your paper's decent, some thin paper will rip, you can just push. You find a sharp part on your scissors and just push the scissors along to cut that. Okay, again, just to check to make sure I had enough, and that was the correct direction, so I'm not doing it the wrong way. I do want it this way. Flip the box upside down, and take your paper that way, and this way. And I don't want my seam here on the edge, I want the seam in the middle. So the other piece was about in the middle. So I'm gonna wrap this one on first, about to the edge, about to the corner, because you don't want too much overlap. This is actually a little bit more overlap than what I normally like, but it should work. Okay, make sure your paper's not too twisted there. Just don't want that near the center, and one piece of tape here in the middle should be enough to hold it. Now, if it's a really long box, you might need 2 pieces of tape there. If it's a small box, which I'll show you on the next one, you might actually be able to skip this piece in the middle altogether. Okay, and then we'll need 2 pieces on the ends. So to get a nice shaped edge, corner side, you want to push, this is actually the bottom of the box where I just taped. You want to push that down, clear over to the edge, and crease down that way, so you get a nice angle there. And then same thing on the other side. You want to be careful you're not pushing too hard on this, so you don't slide the box in, or you'll get extra paper there. Once you get those 2 sides in, they both get folded in. So again, you push down on the side, and you want that nice and flat. And then on the table, that's the other thing, make sure you have a nice table, flat surface to work on. Some people like to work on the floor. I used to do that for wrapping gifts. I'm old now, and it's hard to get up off the floor, so I always go to a table if I'm wrapping. And again, make sure this pushes down in on the edge, and then you should be able to get a nice crease with that, and that should fold up and be nice and symmetrical on that side. Again, one more piece of tape there. Try to get it about centered. And that edge, now the other edge, the other side, you can stand it up if you want. And again, I'll push this side in first where the flap was. So that side goes down first, and it needs to go down flat against the box. Okay, to both sides, and then you want to get that angle up on the sides. Okay, this side goes down. This box is, the lid on it's a little bit bigger, so it's not gonna be perfect, but it'll work. Get a crease there, this side goes down, get a crease here, and then this will end up being the top. This is the top of the box here, so that will be the last flap that goes down. And again, one more piece of tape there. So with 3 pieces of tape, you've got our box wrapped. Okay, I'll be using the ribbon on the next box. It'll be a smaller piece. Okay, we're now going to wrap a smaller box. And I actually just happened to find a piece of paper that's about the right size paper. I didn't cut this to measurements, but it actually works really well. And again, to check it, to see if it's the right size, you lay your box down and roll it. So there's 1 face touching, there's 2, 3, and 4. It's got a little bit extra, which is great. You can't have it just right. You'll have a tiny little gap. So you always want a little bit extra overlap for whenever you tape that. And then to check the sides, the smaller sides, if you can pull that up the whole way so it touches and you've got a little bit more paper hanging out, that's perfect. All right, so again, it's a good idea to flip your box upside down. Most people don't realize it's upside down when they open it, some do, so I always try and flip it upside down so that the tape goes on the bottom. And again, I want the seam to be about in the middle. So I only had a wee little bit of overlap on this one, so that's just almost at the middle. And then the other piece comes up, so now that piece is in the center. Get a small piece of tape, and this is where you could skip this one if you're really low on tape. You could skip that one right there and just hold it, and once you fold it on a small box, this will work. That you could use 2 pieces of tape. So you push the where the flap side is, push that down flat to the box. Take that the whole way over into the corner, the edge, and then from the actual corner, crease, make a crease down along that edge of paper. Again, paper flat along this face, clear over to the edge, and then from the corner, you go down. Both of these come in. You can do them at the same time if you want. If you have too much paper, that's going to happen right there where it kind of folds up upon itself. or if your box is too small and you have just a little bit too much paper there. If you fold this up and it comes up too far, I usually just fold it over. But that comes from having too much paper. So I didn't cut this to size because it was already the right size. It looks like I got the one side a little bit more paper than the other. So center it up too before you do this. I'll have enough to cover. But, so again, the side with the flap goes down first. Then your two sides beside that, get your angled paper going up that way. And then this can come down flat. The other side can come down flat. It's about the same as what the other side was. And then your fourth side that comes down should be from the top. Okay, then I'll show you how to wrap ribbon around this. There's a couple different ways to wrap the ribbon. First thing you do is find the start of the ribbon.
One eternity later.
And this is curling ribbon, so I'm going to show you how to do the fancy curling ribbon too. So whenever, there's a couple different ways. You can go around it at an angle. The easiest way is probably just go straight across and then cross them at the bottom. So start on the top, make sure you have enough. You might have to go back and adjust. But you want to go across the top, and then this is the bottom part, and the two pieces I want to just cross and then go the opposite way. So they go at like 90s. You make 90 turns to each other, 90-degree turns. Okay, and then you flip your box back over, and then, oops, twice, there we go. And then you can tie this off, and you can cut this. If it's curling ribbon, you don't have to have a whole lot of extra to make a fancy ribbon. I'll show you what happens with this. You just haven't have enough to tie the knot on that. Okay, so whenever you tie these, just do an overhand knot, one, and then it's always helpful to have an extra helper. Can I get a finger? You want that finger? I told you about that. Okay. So I can do this myself with a thumb. There, I did that finger anyways. Okay, so whenever you tie that, it doesn't look all that great. The ribbon's just kind of hanging out. If you had enough ribbon, if it wasn't curling ribbon, you could tie it like shoelaces. You can do a couple different bows. You can probably watch another video for that. I'm not real good at making fancy bows. But with the curling ribbon, there are two sides to it. And I almost have to look back to this, see which one it is. So the real shiny side is the outside. The other side that's dull is the curling side. So you use a pair of scissors open up, and you just put it on the dull side, and you scrape it that way, and it makes a nice curl. Okay, and this is not going to be enough ribbon, so what you can do is curl it, and it's curling ribbon. You can take another piece of ribbon and just tie it on and curl that, and that'll make it have a little bit of a nicer bow. Let me see, like that. I usually take it right underneath both pieces, about centered. Really one knot is all you need to hold it on in place, and then you can curl those and then you fluff it up a little bit. And should look nice. And again, you can use all kinds of different things: twine, brown paper, packages tied up with string always looks nice. Okay, tuck it underneath. If it gets too loose, you can tuck it underneath, but that's it. Also, it's a good idea to get ribbon that matches your paper in some way. So we got C3PO in there, just gold, so this fits. Ribbon should accent the colors in the paper. Hope that helps. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, everybody have a great day.